This is Beyond Perception, where it's all about breaking out of limited perception and waking up to our inherent creative genius, our human potential, our true self. I'm Simon Rilling, and I have the true pleasure to speak today to Charlotte Greenwood, visual artist, filmmaker, storyteller, and entrepreneur. She's originally from London and immigrated to Canada at the age of 33. As a visual artist, her medium of choice is painting and drawing. She also has been working in the entertainment business for 20 plus years, where she makes sets for films and TV shows, and also worked on many productions as a prosthetic makeup artist, making creature effects for films like Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, Brothers Grimm, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, James Bond, and several of the X-Men movies. And her mission is to develop unity within humanity and work towards a world of appreciation and connection, using storytelling and creativity as a channel of communication and a conduit to change and transformation. Welcome, Charlotte. It's a true pleasure.
Hi, nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah, it's really a pleasure. The both of us, we participated in a workshop about creativity, and I listened to you talking about your creative process, and then just by pure accident, I stumbled upon your webpage and your portfolio, and it was really intriguing and interesting, and like a sense outside the box thinking, and also amazing artwork. So I am, and I was so curious to hear about your journey. And what I sense, and you might correct me if I'm wrong, creativity seems to be something very important to you, and like a red line through your life. Have you always been creative?
Yes, since the start. I don't know where it comes from, really. I mean, my parents don't really have anything to do with what I do. Like, my sister and I both work. She's a film director, and I work in film in a different part of filmmaking, but and I'm a visual artist as well. I don't know how it happened that both, me and my sister fell into a creative field like that, with parents that were shop owners, and so yeah, it was quite funny. But yeah, creativity from a very early age was a big part of my life, and I was fortunate actually that my parents, despite their kind of grumbling and trying to steer me in a direction more kind of secure, financially secure direction, they still supported me in my art, and very much so. And they helped me, get into one of the best art schools in England. And so that was my first kind of step in that direction. But yeah, since then, I don't know, I just followed my intuition, and it was clear to me from the start that I wanted to be an artist of some kind. And the more I go into this direction, I realize that an artist is a very general description, and it can be whatever you want, really. It's in my interpretation of it, and my perspective, if you like, it's a way of living, and it's a mindset. And for me, creativity it comes through me, and I translate it, and it becomes my flavor and my essence. It is what I give back to it, and then I pass it on. And so that's how I see the whole creative process, really. It's like it's a flow of energy, and it really does come, for me, it comes in waves, and it's like a big flow of creativity can come through, and I can feel it coming. It's energetic as well, and I feel that my energy kind of changes as it comes, and then just letting it come through me, and just embracing, when it does come, and just enjoying it, the process. And if it comes in the form, if it comes through me and I decide to do painting, then I'll do painting. And if it comes through me and I'll decide to do writing, I'll do writing. And it seems like that's how it's going for me now. And before I had a much more kind of logical, or not logical, but like very much more kind of boxed way of seeing being an artist. And I'll be like, oh, I'm a painter, I'm you know, I paint, and that's how I'm an artist. But it's as big as your imagination can lets it be, you know. That's how I see creativity, and that's how I see being an artist. It's a life choice. That's definitely what I decided. I chose to be an artist very early on, and I think my journey, taking me through being a painter and then finding my way into filmmaking and that route, and sculpting and all of that kind of stuff, that taught me a lot about creating a project and research and development, how to develop my own language. I think that's the whole basis, really, is you know, understanding that you as an artist, you have a language, and it's a different language than the verbal language. Well, no, that's not true, actually, because other artists, performing artists, they use the language to express their creativity through words and spoken word, but it's still, they'll have their flavor that they'll add to the words. So I think that in essence it's about discovering your own language and creating your own language that you then add to creativity, and then pass it on into the world for other people to be inspired by, to learn from, and enjoy, hopefully. So yeah, and then through working in cinema and film, I learned a lot just about space, like working with space and working with light, and like that we use a lot of textures. And so it's, I don't know, from my journey, you know, if we're talking about art in particular, observation is the key, really. That's where you start. And observation, you start, you know, learning about how the world looks, how the world, you know, how the physical world is affected by light, and how it exists in space, and so on. And so the start for me was very much, a lot of the work that I was doing was very real, and like I explored hyperrealism and went really into the details of things. And I still have that element that exists in my work quite heavily. And just working in cinema, the stuff that we make in cinema, like the sets and in prosthetic makeup, it's always very real. It has to create, even if the creature isn't real, but it has to look real, and you're bringing something into a new reality. So if you're building a set, then basically, you know, for example, if the set is a building, then it has to look like a building. So you're always dealing with reality, whether you're removing it from its original reality and putting it into a new illusionary reality, you're still dealing with, you know, recreating something that is believable. So it's suspension of, it's creating an illusion, a suspension of reality. Yeah, that's what I see as being the magic of movie making. One of the parts of the magic of movie making, you know, and it's creating worlds that are so real. You know, you're telling a story, and you're bringing the viewer and the audience into this world, which I find fascinating. So it's a very extremely elaborate way of storytelling, but it's storytelling. So yeah, all of those things were a big part of my exploration of and development as an artist. And you know, it goes far into teamwork and deadlines, working with deadlines, and all of that kind of stuff I transfer into my own practice, which really helped me, you know, with my own projects, and being able to set myself deadlines and set myself goals and a structure to work in, so that, you know, my creativity doesn't just get lost in oblivion and chaos, which if you don't put a structure around it, it does, you know, because you have to let it flow through, say, like, you know, you have to establish the riverbanks, otherwise the water will just flow everywhere. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much. I mean, so many questions.
Shoot, I'm here for you.
Yeah, one of the things which I just understood is that, like, creativity, or like there's a form of energy which is coming through you, and so my first question is, like, you also said that you went to art school, so was, like, the process of art school, like, was it about being able to tap into that energy, or like, like, or in other words, like, if you're just, like, if you're expressing something which is there, like, do you still need to master the skill of actually painting, like or like is there practice needed to create art, if it's, like, just an expression of energy coming through you? Like, does my question make sense?
Yeah, it does. Well, if what I'm understanding is that, do you need to have skills, like practical skills, to learn before, you know, going into doing art? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, kind of, because I looked at your portfolio, and you just also mentioned there are paintings, drawings which seem so real, very detailed, like a photography. And my first instinct would be, wow, to create something that detailed, that realistic. This person must have practiced 10,000s of hours, like, to really be able to create something which is really difficult to differentiate from reality.
Yeah, in that sense, yes, but that was my choice, and I naturally fell into that. And there was one lesson in art school, the one that I went to, Chelsea College of Art and Central St Martin's. One of the tutors that I had there left a little nugget with me, and it was all about you know, going towards abstraction. And he said, you start with recording, that's observation, and you're copying, you're just recording what you're seeing, and then and then you go into interpretation, and then you go into abstraction. So it's like that's the structure that I was taught, and that was just in one of the classes. There was other classes where there would be a tutor. He played in the day when we had cassettes. He had like several cassette players next to each other, and he'd play different things on each one. And it was to scramble our mind to stimulate it, and to just like get us to break out of our daily structure. And that class was all about abstract and getting into our imagination and expression, and trying to free our expression, the channel between what's inside in our inside world and getting it out into the outside, the tangible world, right? So, and there's lots of different ways you can do art. Like, you can do art, make art in any way, and that's the thing that makes it so difficult to teach. So I mean, at art school, the one that I went to, it was very heavy on conceptual art, and so I didn't really, and the classes I was telling you about, they're all from Central St Martin's when I was doing my foundation course, which is a course that's three semesters, and you cover all elements of art. It's for people to get a taster, you know, a little bit of photography, a little bit of figure drawing, a little bit of sculpture, and then you can see, okay, which area do I want to specialize in? And then you go into your course, which is 3 years long, a bachelor's degree in arts, and you choose your specialization. And then when I was doing my bachelor's degree, I decided to go for painting. And then when I was in painting department, I was like, I felt really stuck on the 2D surface. And so I reapplied, and I thought to myself, shit, if I do sculpture, I'll have a lot more practical skills that I can then take into the workforce. So it was more of a decision that was related to, you know, taking advantage of the workshops that I had available. And I realized that, shit, after my 4 years at art school, I'm not going to have access to those technical workshops. And I wanted to learn about bronze casting and about woodworking, about casting, about metalworking. So I took advantage of all of that because they had all of those facilities there. Some people didn't, you know, some people did installation art, and they just used, say, like there was one girl, she used furniture, and she found furniture and used that to make her sculptures with. And it was a lot more kind of conceptual, you know, she didn't really have didn't have much kind of transformation in her process apart from in a conceptual way. I had a lot, and there were other people that did too, who did a lot of woodwork, and it was completely diverse. But my point is that my choice on my journey was, yes, I chose to train my observation. And I feel if you understand observation and you can copy something, just the action of copying it and the process of copying something, you have to make millions of decisions and you're training your hand-eye movement, your hand-eye coordination to such a subtle degree that then you understand space and you understand form in a way that then you can abstract it. But it's a different way of working, because in 2016, when I had a complete change, a shift of style, I felt like I was stuck in the hyperrealism style, and I felt, you know, like I was in a straitjacket kind of thing. It was too structured and too tight, and the amount of expression that I could let come through doing a painting that was hyperreal I felt a bit stunted. So then I discovered, I went into a different thread which is the series on my website called Imaginary, and it was all straight from my imagination. I just started with a piece of paper, a blank piece of paper. I had no plan. I just had music and time, and I just took a pencil and started drawing and let the line go, and whatever came out. And then I just started to explore aquarelle, because I found using aquarelle and watercolor in the traditional way, I find it's a very difficult medium to use, because you can't make mistakes really without it looking bad or like, you know, I find it's a beautiful way of working, aquarelle, and I never really explored it. I'm more of an oil painter, and so aquarelle is a lot about letting the light shine through from the paper. So anyway, so I got my aquarelles out and started to just color in these drawings, and it became the series. It's like a very light-hearted, playful, naive as well, and there was no intention to make anything look real, really. It was just really exploring my imagination and letting it just flow out as raw as possible. And so it was a completely different process from, you know, having the structure for, like, say, The Paradox of Consumerism and The Age of New Bark, which was the series of oil paintings that I think is on the first part of my page, and which were very planned paintings. Though, I mean, I did the beginning of that project was all about, you know, creating visions, and I use visions to establish the paintings, and then I'll like take my vision that I've had, you know, around a subject. For example, this one was consumerism, and I would come up with a vision which I would say, like, if you put all of them together, that they kind of coming from a world that there's similarities between all of them. And so then with that vision, I'd create a plan and a drawing, and then I'd go with the 7-layer technique that they used to use in the time of the Baroque and the Renaissance. They would have a drawing, and then they would, from that drawing, they'd put little dots in all of the lines, and then they'd place that on their canvas, and then with a puff bag full of graphite powder, they'd just tap on the drawing, and it would go through the little holes and leave a trace on the canvas. And then from that trace, they would go with an ink pen and draw the lines, because the ink doesn't come off when you do oil painting. And then from there, they'd establish their monochrome painting, and then from there they'd start adding color, like gradually, and that whole process is such a laborious process, and it you end up creating a painting that's very high quality, and it's going to last for a very long time, but because you've taken all the care to like really establish all the different layers and the foundations and so on and so on. So it's a completely different process from just like getting into your raw imagination and into your heart really, and getting it to come out and recording it as it's coming out, and not thinking, and just really trying to get out of your way, and just really connect with what you're drawing on, and get in touch with your heart, and that is a completely different practice. There's no planning, it's there's no pre-drawing or anything. So yeah, it's I can't remember what I was talking about now, like where we're coming from, but yeah, it's like if you're doing something that's abstract, it's not mandatory that you have to learn a skill of a technical skill. I don't think it's mandatory, but I think it's very useful because it gives you really good understanding of the physical world, and then how to interpret it. Because, well, anyway, that was my journey. So, there's other people, I'm sure, that will completely disagree and say, no, you don't need to do that, and they're right too. That's just my perspective. So, yeah.
That sounds, it's just so interesting. It was exactly what I was wondering about. Are there different processes to the different arts you're creating?
Yeah.
And then also a question, is it possible to be very good in creating art, for example, photorealistic paintings, but not being creative in a sense of having access to intuition? Like, are these, like, is this the one thing more like a craft being mastered over many years, and the other one is in connection to what is there already, and you're just like a channel of it?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. Yeah, I think it is true. It is possible to be a technician, and yeah, I think that's an interesting question from the point of view that it doesn't mean necessarily that if you're an excellent technician that you have developed your creativity necessarily. You're developing a skill. That's a really difficult. It's an unusual. It's a difficult thing to quantify, to define. I think to say what's the difference, because I mean, I could say that I'm a good technician, but firstly, what's a good artist or what's a good technician? But like in terms of if we're qualifying that in terms of copying something and making it look real to our eye, then yes, you can be a really good replication artist or technician. And if you're going to take that further and get into your creativity, then what you're choosing to draw or paint or recreate could be then taken into the next realm, which is being creative and exploring a world and creating a world, and not necessarily just but it's all it depends, I guess, in the context. Maybe we could say that it depends on the subject matter, like if you're copying a car, then the car already exists and it's a thing that people drive in, and you're just copying something that already exists. But if you're, like, say, for example, what I was referring to before in filmmaking, where we're creating a world, there's elements of that world that could already exist, depending on the story that the director and the script writer have created, and the production designer and so on, the whole team. And so but they're also taking it into a story that doesn't exist. The story doesn't exist, for example. I mean, yeah, we're not talking about documentaries or anything, but yeah, say, for example, Harry Potter. I watched Harry Potter yesterday night, actually, just out of interest. I haven't seen it for years, and it was an amazing feat of creativity to create the world of Harry Potter, and you know what J.K. Rowling created through her writing. And of course, there's elements of reality that are in there, like, you know, houses and so on, and cars, but they're in a different context. And so, yeah, I think that context has a lot to do with it, and that's where, and storytelling has a lot to do with it too. So yeah, I think that may be the difference between what you were asking, between a technician and a creative.
Yeah. What I'm also thinking about is, do you think everybody has ability to be creative? Is that something which everybody has access to, or are there just a few selected people who have this ability and others have other gifts? Or is this something everybody can access, but most of us, we haven't?
No, I think everybody has that ability. We're all creative beings. At the beginning, there was a test, a study that happened years ago. I can't remember the name of the study, but they took a group of kids. I think they were pre-5 or pre-7-year-olds or something, and they were testing them for creativity and to see how creativity carried on through the life of a group of people. And they noticed that creativity was huge in the pre-7, pre-5, pre-7 age group, and then after that, going into adolescence, it drops. And then after that, going into, you know, adulthood, you know, when they got to 30 and they still were following the same group of people, it dropped like drastically. So from that, I think I understand that, and just from my own experience, you know, if you don't use it, you lose it. And I think we're all born with creativity, and we're all born as conduits for this, you know, creativity, this energy, you know, tapping into intuition. We're all capable of it, and it's just the choices that, you know, the choices that we make that take us either away from it or in you know, with it. And I think that there's so much pressure on human beings to live in the society that we've created, to have money and to, you know, to survive. Some people don't even, you know, get to the money phase. They're just like literally looking to survive, creating a shelter, you know, but I think there's so many things that can distract us from our creativity, and that establish, like, impose structures upon us, and that then make it very difficult for us to use our creativity, or to even maybe consciously want to. And a lot of people don't even think creativity is important. But I find there's a lot of adults that end up in adulthood thinking, oh, I wish I could draw, or, you know, I wish I could sing, or, you know, and there's a kind of almost a regret that exists in many people that they didn't continue with that, or they think that they don't know, you know, I hear a lot of people saying, oh, I'm crap at art, or I can't draw, you know, I can't draw. Boom, finished. That's it. They shut the door, you know, all I can draw is a stick man, or, you know, and it's just a question of they've stopped that process of development. And for whatever reason, they had a family, they had a job, or this, that, and the other. They just chose a different path, and that was it. But I think more and more now, the creativity is being seen as a very useful skill and a useful tool in big corporations, big companies, where it's about problem solving, really. Creativity, that's like where you find you're inventing. It's very related to inventing and creating solutions for things, coming up with new ideas. And it's in my perception, I see it as you can't not have it. It's really, really important. And for whatever we want to create in our future, for whatever we want to create in our future, that's it. We're creating a future. We're creating the next thing, or the next company, the next object, the next, I don't know, product, whatever. You're still, creativity is always there. It's very important. So I think for me, that's part of my wisdom that I want to pass on to the next generations, is to inspire people to continue that, to keep that in their life. And I think one of your questions when you sent me that form was, what's your most beneficial habit or ritual or something? And I think that I would include that in there. It would be exercising my creativity, and I do that in my job, even if I'm not, if I call it a job because I'm earning money when I do filmmaking. I use my creativity every single day, and whether it's to do with what I'm actually making, like if it's a part of the decor or not, or if it's just part of setting up the space to work in. There's things that get in your way, and you have to make decisions and choices, and make an area to work in that's efficient. And sometimes you don't have the tools that you need, and you have to find a way of creating the desired look or texture or this, that, and the other with something that you don't have. And so you have to be creative. And so it goes beyond just painting or making music or this, that, and the other. It's really like a skill. It's about finding solutions. And I sometimes describe myself, instead of an artist, I'm a problem solver.
And what would be your recommendation to someone who doesn't define themselves as very creative, would like to be more creative, or even learn to draw or paint, or learn to solve better problems?
Yeah.
What would be your suggestion? Like, do you have a process someone can start, like to tap in?
Yeah. I mean, there's books out there on creativity, but I mean, I've offered people courses, and I've taught people art. I ran earlier this year a creativity challenge where people were invited to, for 30, or the pilot of that program was a 30-day long. I found that it was a bit too long for most people to stick to the program for that long. But
that would be about painting or drawing, or
it was actually just keeping it really simple. It was about drawing, and just using drawing as the vehicle to extract creativity, and to tap into your creativity and really like explore your way of expressing. And some people did it, and they weren't like necessarily artists as such, and they still enjoyed it. And there was other people that were artists who I actually work with, and they joined me on the project. And it was just like 2 weeks of fun, and every day there'd be like a different intention. For example, it would take you on a journey from like drawing with music, drawing with your opposite hand, drawing with your eyes closed, and then it's about shaking up the security that you've established, like the usual, and making it unusual. And so it's tricking yourself and making you find solutions to new parameters. And there was one person who really found it difficult because it really pushed up against some of his, his boundaries, and the fact, and showed him how much, structure he was working in. And when you take away, that structure, or you change the structure, because there's always some kind of structure, but if you change that structure and you make it something that you're not used to, then it really makes you work and makes you find, makes you explore. And I think that's like a good, it makes the couple, like exploration and problem solving, they're like part of the creative process, I think. So that was kind of what I was using as my triggers in the course, where, taking away security and going in and kind of creating an environment for people that they had no choice to explore the unknown. And so, yeah, for me, that was a big part of that course. So, yeah, I mean, people can contact me, people can go to take a course in art school, or they can read some books. There's thousands of stuff on videos on YouTube that could help, anybody, or if you just want to do it on your own and explore, then just pick up a piece of paper and a pencil and start drawing, just whatever comes out of your mind, and don't judge it, just do it. And that's the thing, like, people that really judge themselves, and that's what stops them. They think, oh, it should look like that, and there's no should. It just is, and it's not bad or it's not good. It just is. And if you try and stay in that mindset of it's just is, then it's going to be really useful for you to explore your creativity. If you judge what you're doing, forget it. You're going to stop, and that's the key. I think that's one of the keys is not to judge what you're doing, and just like keep going. It's like, how would you like it if someone would judge you and you knew that you were being judged? Imagine what creativity feels like when you judge it and then you just ignore it. It's like, creativity is going to sit in the corner and be like really pissed off and it's like not going to come back to you. So yeah, like treat it like it's your friend. If you don't judge your friend, it's going to stay with you and be your friend. So that's one way of looking at it.
That resonates a lot. I have been painting like till the age of 13, 14. I had also arts as a major in school, and then life changed, and it was all about achieving, like not having any time for hobbies, or something with no purpose, like from that mindset. And just this year, I rediscovered all paintings, and I was like, oh, like that wasn't so bad, like, and remembering also, like, I spent a lot of time when I was young painting every day, and I cannot say that I have been painting a lot now, but a couple of times I started painting, and also 2 weeks ago we went to a creative expression lesson, and we were just handed colors. Literally, was just shades of blue, and then it was like put on music, and it was about like painting what you feel. And initially it was okay, how can I start? Like, it needs to be good, and at some point, like, whatever, like, I just paint colors, and and there was this sense of almost tuning into some kind of. It was more like feeling or seeing colors, and just letting it flow, and not like, that was the first time I got a sense of what other painters or artists might be feeling. I don't know. Like, it was more like something was coming, and I was just like the vessel of it, even though maybe the piece of art I created was not really aesthetic, or Yeah, but it
That's
felt
your
really,
judgment. That's
yeah,
your
but
judgment.
it felt really good, and I like it. It's now in my living room
Oh,
on the
cool.
wall, and that was
Cool.
really a nice experience. And it was make me think. And I think at that time we already had spoken about the interview, and I was like, okay, there's something else. And when I look back to the last years, I had no sense that this is existing, and that's why I also was so curious to speak to you and get your perspective, and also how possibly other people can open this window up. It felt more like a door through which you could see something else, and that's why I'm so curious to hear like, what someone who is listening to this could do to kind of
Yeah, I think that's a really good a good thing is the judgment. That's a key thing, not to judge what you're doing and just enjoy it.
And do you never judge yourself, or is
Oh,
it
I do, yeah.
or is it something you learned also?
Well, yeah, and it's something I learned to be with, and it's not, sometimes it's not a nice thing. Like, I find myself, I have, like, it's been tough for me recently to get back into it, and even with all the experience I've had, and I sometimes go through periods where I'm thinking, shit, you're not an artist, and I'm judging myself, oh, you're not an artist, you don't even paint anymore. And then and this is like, it's the battle. Sometimes it's a battle with my own ego, and sometimes it can be often, it depends how you relate to your ego and how you recognize when it's trying to stop you from doing what you love, or doing like what you're expressing your essence. And I think that's, for me, is a key of how I've chosen to live, is to really be an expression of my essence and my purpose, and discovering what that is, and the more you do, the more you discover what that is. And and it's not just like, oh, I've discovered it and that's it. It's like it's a continuing process that you'll have for the rest of your life. And so, yeah, for me, sometimes I go for a long time I haven't painted, and this week I'd started to paint again, because I had a whole bunch of values to do with, the environment, and not wanting to pollute the environment, not wanting to add stuff to the world, and just thinking, yeah, painting, every time I do a painting, I'm adding something extra, something more to the world, and another physical thing that, and I was thinking, the environment, and try not to pollute the environment, and so on. And and I don't know, I don't know what the final solution is or anything, but I started to feel not pain, but not physical pain, but just, longing to really paint. And I thought, just do it. And, at least I'm doing oil paint. It's not acrylic painting, which is plastic. And, just trying to use the minimum amount of toxic materials. I mean, doing my job in cinema, we use a lot of toxic materials. And at the end of a wrap, there's the film shoot, and then most of the stuff that we create is scrapped, and it ends up in the environment. So it's a dilemma for me. I stopped working in cinema in 2013 because it was at the end of a very toxic job for me, where we were using so many materials that were very, nocive, and I just felt I needed to rest and have recover from all those years in cinema. And I actually decided to follow my intuition, and I became a CrossFit coach for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found creativity in that field too, and the way I coached people and so on. It was a completely different world than what I'd been working in before. And then in 2018, I wanted to get back into something that was more creative and more, physical, physically using my skills as an artist. And so I took on, it was like an X-Men, one of the X-Men movies. And from then on, I stayed with it again. So I had a few years where I wasn't working in cinema, and then I just got back into it. And I don't coach anymore as a CrossFit coach. It's just too many things to do at the same time. And so, yeah, and then I was thinking the same thing, like I'm now creating or participating in creating these decors that end up a lot of the time in landfills and so on. And so there's like a big conflict with my values, because I'm a very conscious about the environment, and I live a life where I make life choices where I eat organic food, I try and eat local, and I try and minimize my garbage and so on, and recycling and so on. But in the end, my purpose is storytelling. As a storyteller is so powerful and so much bigger than me, and I just have to do it. And so I'm kind of dealing with this conflict of my values of, every time I make a piece of art that's a physical piece of art or a decor or something, I'm contributing to, something that's going into the environment. And so, yeah, I'm still dealing with that. I haven't found, the solution, the ultimate solution, or, how to stop it. I tried stopping it. I tried stopping painting, and seriously, I don't know. There's a lot of other things that I've chosen in my life that that are good for the environment, and so I'm like allowing myself to paint. And so then, yeah, I got back into painting, and so all that to say, that it's not a straight line. It's a very up and down kind of roller coaster journey with my creativity and so on. So yeah, it's an interesting one, saying like, are you an artist, or going back to your question.
And drawing and painting, is this something you are doing for yourself, or are you selling your art to, or also producing art on demand, or is it more like a private?
All of the above.
Everything. Okay.
All of the above. Yeah, I've done a lot of artwork for myself, and in 2008, actually, I'd been in cinema for already a long time, and it was fresh. I was kind of fresh in Canada. I moved to Canada in 2005, and I was thinking, I want to move out of the business and be an artist full time. And after a very lucrative job in Toronto, I came back, and I'd had enough money saved up after those 4 months or 3 months working on that contract to actually take off a sabbatical year. So I took off a year, and I paid my own way. I didn't have a grant or anything. I just used all the money that I saved up and to be a painter, and that's where I created that series, the Paradox of Consumerism in the Age of New Baroque. And yeah, I sold a few of those paintings, but I still have some of them, and I had a whole bunch of exhibitions. So yeah, that was mostly just, I was off my own back. It was something I was passionate about, and I wanted to explore the subject of consumerism, the whole like machine that we've created. Consumerism was a created thing, and it still exists, obviously, in a very big way.
May I ask you to describe quickly what is visible on those paintings to those listening to it? I will add the link and resources to the show notes of this episode in any case, but okay. Those paintings are incredible. And also for me, I was thinking on the one side, I was impressed by the quality of the drawing, even though I have not really experienced in that. But on the other hand, I also thought there's really a depth of thinking behind
Mm.
of yeah, visualizing problems we are having in our societies in a very profound way.
Yeah.
Uh,
And sorry, did you want to finish or?
yeah, there was one picture. It was I was a very massive lady being held up by the world's population, not in a very good state, and that that really made me think, because you could find a lot of realizations in that painting, and so I was also curious to hear about your worldview, or what was the rationale behind that. Like, what you also mentioned storytelling a couple of times. What was the story you intended to tell with that picture?
Are you talking about the one that's with the whole pit of bodies under it?
Yes, exactly. One large lady.
Yeah. Actually,
back upwards, yeah.
there's two figures. Yeah, there's two figures in that painting. They're making love on the sticks. The sticks is for me, it's the symbol of something that's very precarious, and the fact, you know, that they're two bodies that are intertwined with each other, and they just have no idea of what's going on around them, of what they're creating, and how precarious their situation is inside their ignorance, and underneath is just full of bodies that are dead or in struggle, in a big pit, and then there's like this big black hole. And I guess that's sort of a metaphor for society and like the mass of humanity. And then there's one that's kind of standing up with wings, and coming out and getting out of the mess. And then at the top there's cherubs that are kind of like, they're symbolic of the new generations, and they don't know what they're getting into. And they're at the top of the painting. I guess it's called The Loss of Innocence, that painting. And so they're, you know, they're going to fall down eventually into their reality, where the two figures are making love on the sticks, and be in that kind of precarious situation of either falling into the pit of death, or, you know, coming out of it and being kind of enlightened, if you like. But that whole process is like losing their innocence and falling down to earth. So yeah, I was wanting to create in those paintings was something that would be engaging visually to the viewer, making sort of the ugly beautiful, and because beauty is very captivating. And so it was like, and in that sense, I found it relates to the whole consumerist process as well, because you know, we're being captivated, our attention is being captivated, and what we're being captivated to do is to spend our money to purchase something or a service or whatever. That whole system and mechanism I found very fascinating. And so yeah, the paintings that I wanted to design and create, I wanted them to look really beautiful and have that quality like you picked up on. That was also engineered into it, you know, the whole thing that I chose to use the 7-layer technique, so that, you know, and the surfaces that I created to make the paintings on, they're very prepared, they're very smooth, like really smooth. Because, you know, some people, like, they just want to paint directly onto the canvas, and you can still see the canvas texture. I made those canvases really smooth, like eggshell smooth, with gesso, and then I'd sand down the gesso and put another layer of gesso and sand down that layer. It's like, so, and it's a really nice layer, nice surface to paint on, so that, you know, it adds to the quality and the preservation of the painting in the end as well. so that the paint doesn't rot the canvas. So, you know, it goes into, you know, far in all the choices that I made. And yeah, so in terms of the metaphor, it's called the loss of innocence. So, you know, it's really just in general about, you know, losing the innocence and that connection to your intuition, and just like going into a precarious situation of being at the mercy of the outside world, and not being the driver of your life, and being stuck in, you know, ignorance, not being aware, all of those things. And then there's that little figure at the bottom right, which is, you know, the one that gets up, and there's kind of hope that, you know, there's a choice, there's an alternative. But it's like a very precarious painting, and or vision in that painting. And then that one relates to the big the Rancid Feast, excuse me, which is it's a 6x4 painting, and it has also got those big figures in, and it's relating to greed, you know, not necessarily that I'm using the symbol of, you know, a big obese person as a symbol for greed, not that every single person who's obese in real life is necessarily greedy, but that, you know, there's all sorts of other things that are associated with that. But in my world that I'm creating, that's what the choice of that image is. That's what it's for, as a symbol of greed. And it's just like, so that, you know, people who are suspended by those sashes of material, who are held up by the cherubs, which are the new generation that are coming in. They're kind of holding up the big fat people, and then underneath they're being fed by, you know, the big mass of society, and all these people that are holding up actually on the plates there's like junk food and so on, but they've got their eyes closed, and it's the same thing. They're oblivious to their environment and what they're actually contributing to. But the whole painting is in suspension, and if you take away any element in that painting, the whole thing falls apart. So it's not putting necessarily the blame. We're all contributing to this machine. So I'm not pointing the finger at any particular sector of society. It's like I see it as one big machine, and we're all in different parts of the machine, and so we're all helping to keep this machine alive by being in it. And some of us are actually really stuck in it. So it's like, and it's an interesting paradox, and that's, you know, why I called the series The Paradox of Consumerism, because it is a paradox. It's, you know, it's like goo, we're stuck in it. And if you pulled out the new generations, then the machine wouldn't work, because we're feeding the economy with new blood, right? If you took out the consumers, there would be nothing left. If you took out the workers, or the ones that are feeding from beneath, if you want, wouldn't work. So, you know, the whole thing is like this big machine, and I found it actually quite beautiful. It's like one of those things. It's beautiful in its grotesqueness. So again, it was like making something that's in essence quite ugly, but making it beautiful, and it is beautiful, and it's in its perfection. It's like a genius creation. It's beautiful, and that's how I see perfection. It's like perfection is everything. It's like, it's with its imperfection makes perfection. It's like a yin and yang thing. I don't see like perfection being something as this flawless thing. It's complete. So yeah, that would be kind of a synopsis of what's behind those paintings.
Yeah, thank you very much. I will make sure people have the chance to see this, and with your description, it makes even more sense. Thank you so much. One of the things I also know that you're on your project, or the project you right now, and you before you also mentioned about like getting closer to your essence, And with what I understand, also this new project is about the distilling the essence of people. And I would love you to describe what this project is about and what you're intending to do.
It started in 2012, this project. So it's been a real labor of love, and I kind of stumbled upon the idea, or I kind of created the idea out of a situation which arose when I went to visit my family, and I ended up arguing with them for like 4 days out of the 10 days that I was there, or out of the week that I was there. And I was like, I came all the way over from Canada to see you guys, and like all we're doing is arguing. And I just thought to myself, okay, this is maybe because they don't know who I am anymore. You know, I hadn't seen them for about 3.5 years at that time, and I just thought maybe they don't know who my friends are. They don't know really much about what I do in much depth. We've kind of like grown apart. Our connection had kind of been diluted. So I thought to myself, okay, well, maybe I could do an art project that would be around, showing them who my friends are, my people that had marked my life, and that's where I started the project really. And it became about embodying how did I become who I was, and so I took the concept of an autobiography being my own autobiography, and I thought, incorporate all of the stories, well, not all of them, but a selection of the stories that I shared with people who contributed to who I've become. And I feel, when you look at who you've become, Simon, or from, everybody, if you look back into your life and you think, oh, what are the key events that I've lived, or the key people in my life who've taught me the key things that have contributed to who I've become, or who've contributed to the choices I've made to get me where I am today. So that was kind of like the essence behind the book and the project and the film. And so I wanted to make, originally it was 100 people out of my life that I considered had marked my life, who had taught me key things, and that I'd shared really memorable moments with, and to do portraits of them. And I chose originally pencil and paper because it was very accessible, and anybody can draw on a piece of paper. And so for me it was like a challenge, instead of using big technology and like this fancy stuff to make the artwork, I wanted to make it really simple. So the original drawings were all on pencil on paper, and I found that an interesting challenge too. And then now recently it's just it's got more and more involved in actually appreciating the essence of people at large, and just maybe it's moving away from being my autobiography particularly, to really an exploration of humanity and of the human being and humanness and discover and exploring what that is, and really enjoying discovering who people are and exploring who people are and what makes them, what's the essence of each person. And so this year I started to do interviews like you on Zoom, and just like asking people the questions, kind of unified questions that I want to include their answers into the book, because it's all about their stories, that how they see themselves, their main stories that they've lived in their life that they want to share with the world, and what they've learned from these experiences, and something maybe if I know them, what's a memorable experience that they've shared with me. And so it's kind of keeping it into autobiography theme. But yeah, that's where it's kind of going. And I thought also to take it more at large, to speak in schools around Canada, to promote the project, and to share with people, young adults, to share with them, the power and the importance of really living in line with your essence and your purpose, and what that gives back to the world. Because if you're living in your essence and your purpose, and you're living your true nature, and you know who you are, you're much more, you can contribute way more to humanity, and it's a way more simple way of living. It's so simple, seriously. Like you're happier. You're not necessarily all the time happier, but it just like it flows way more easily. So yeah, that's where it's going. Yeah, in an answer.
Yeah, thank you very much. With this podcast, I'm experiencing possibly something similar. With each conversation, it is like stepping into someone's world and seeing the world through the other person's eyes, and that's super, super interesting. It's also leading me to appreciating, like, even more, like that or understanding that each single one of us is special, has special gifts, a unique perspective, and that in itself, it's already an incredible eye-opening experience for me doing this podcast. Besides the intention of like expanding our perspectives together, and when you have those conversations, and I have seen drawings also on your webpage and your portfolio, and you are distilling or like the essence, from what I understand, into these drawings. But then also these drawings, do you have a photography or something in front of you where you kind of like draw from? What I want to ask is the drawing different, like with all the like questions, the interaction, the conversation, like, but when I look at the drawings, they seem very like photorealistic too. They long question short. How does the drawing change after like these questions and the interaction, even though for me, like not being familiar to, like, it seems very photorealistic?
I don't know how it changed, how the drawings change, because I don't have a drawing before and a drawing after, but it becomes something as the kind of the end product, if you like, or it becomes the drawing as a result of my interaction with these people, and whatever that may be. And I think I do start with a photo. I start with a photo. I usually take it on my cell phone, actually. It's like nothing fancy, and that's one of the things that I really enjoyed about the project was just choosing to make it really simple. And so taking a picture on my cell phone and just focusing more on the connection and more on seeing them than the technology of having a really fancy camera to take the photograph, and just the whole process of making the painting. And I spend 20-25 hours with them, not in person, but through their stories and through me spending time rendering their face. And what I find really interesting is when even on a picture you take with your camera, with your phone, it still shows you an image of them and their history, and I see their history is ingrained in their faces, their lines and their characteristics. And I find that part of it is really, really fascinating, is that a human face is a result of all those millions of choices we've made, all the, you know, the hardships that we've lived, all the amazing moments, and it's all recorded in every cell of our body. And so when you can observe it to that depth and really kind of get and tap into that and really start to see, you know, how their lines blend into each other, or like, you know, if they've got more lines around their eyes, or more kind of, I don't know, whatever it is, if they've got, you know, a blemish here, or, you know, if their face isn't symmetrical, or, you know, all of those kinds of things, there's always something behind it. And it's always and it's also an evolving thing, and it never stops recording, and it never stops transforming. And you know, you find at the end of someone's life, the things that they take with them are their body and their stories, and they don't have materials around really, unless, well, the Egyptians did. They buried themselves with their riches. But in general, you know, you don't really take that stuff with you. You take your memories and your connections that you've lived with people with you, and so that's the essence behind the project is, and each person, when I'm drawing them, that's what I'm trying to absorb and tap into, and really kind of find the essence of them through what I've got, the information. So yeah, I use a photo. I'll take it into Photoshop and do some adjustments on the lighting, maybe to kind of accentuate things here or there, and create a mystery, or, you know, whatever I see coming through them already from the shot that I took. And then I'll go and explore in the background. I'll use the background as my kind of less setting my imagination into action, and really, you know, that's where I bring the magic to the painting, to the drawing. There's be like sometimes some of them there's like little creatures that appear, and there's marks, and I'm really trying to play with the two-dimensional surface, and see what depth I can create, what world I can create inside of that. And they're not very big, they're only 14 by 11, so, you know, they're not huge pieces of artwork. And that's where I'm finding that I'm getting to the stage where I want to include color and explore starting to paint portraits, and see where it will go with that, and maybe making them bigger, and seeing like where it goes from there. But yeah, that's I do use photography as my starting point, and the connection that I've lived with the people that I draw that I know. But some of them have been commissioned. Like there was one that I was commissioned, who was someone I was coaching when I was a CrossFit coach, and his wife, she died of cancer. She was working in the medical business, and so I never met her, but he commissioned me to draw four drawings of her to give on to her brothers and sisters. So, you know, just that in a story as in itself it's a beautiful story, and a very interesting challenge to take on as well, because, you know, I had to try and see who she was. He gave me some of her things, some like things that were dear to her, and just so I'd have them. And around when I was doing the drawing, he gave me a little booklet about her life, and that they'd created when she passed away, you know, about her, what she'd done and who she was and so on. So there was some information that I had to go by, and then just looking into her face and seeing you know, who she was through like he sent me a whole mass of photographs to choose from of her, from various stages of her life. So I picked out 4 that came to me, and I took it from there. But yeah, so it's very very diverse project, full of interesting discoveries.
Yeah, you intrigued me, and I'm super interested to see what comes out of it, and if there's a way or a chance to follow your work. I mean, will you add those pictures to your webpage at some point?
Yeah, they're there. Yeah, they're in the Project U section. So yeah, I mean, it's still under development, the website. I think a lot of the paintings I haven't put titles or anything on yet, but the Project U, there's some drawings there of that project and a description of the project. But there's actually a website that I'm building associated with that project as a standalone website. So eventually there'll be, you can click the button and it'll take you to the website. So there'll be a link between my official artist website and that project website. Yeah.
Super cool. It was really, really interesting, and I want to be respectful of your time too.
We've been going a long time. Eh?
Is there something else you want to share about what you're working on, like anything else, like projects, products you want to share with the audience, to whoever is listening to this, or a message?
I think mostly I would just say, I mean, the projects I'm working on Moonfall at the moment, which is a new Roland Emmerich movie, and I'm just still developing Project U. But in terms of a message that I would leave for people, really embrace your creativity. Really, like, try and explore it. Be a friend with it. It's your friend. It's there to really bring magic into your life, and try and be nice to it and respect it. Just like embrace your creativity. Yeah, that's what I would say. Give time to spend with it, because it's important. It'll enrich your life.
Dear Charlotte, thank you so much. It has been incredibly insightful, and thank you for inspiring us and helping us to understand more about the creative expression and process. And and the show notes, we will add your webpage, your details for everybody to check out and discover your art. And thank you for who you are, taking the time to sharing your experience, your wisdom, your expertise with us. And here at Beyond Perception, it's really about empowering people to live self-determined, free and healthy lives. And it's a true honor to having met you and having had this conversation with you, and being on this journey together. Looking forward to seeing you in the future again. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for inviting me. It's been a pleasure having a talk about creativity and other things.